Welcome, everyone, to the Gamemode Creative Podcast. I guess that's how we're introducing it for now.
Yeah, sure. We can introduce it like that. I mean,
Okay.
Nice to have you listening in, and we're looking forward to seeing where this all goes.
And we're going to start with some basic introductions because this is the first episode of who knows how many, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Who knows?
First thing you're probably wondering is who even are these voices to start off. I'll let you start, Meg, though. Go on ahead.
Who is this random person? I am, well, you know what? Let's start off with the reasoning behind this podcast. I think that actually might be better to start off now that I think about it, because it kind of has a lot to do with what we're going to talk about and who we are and why,
Oh, that's true, actually. Yeah.
The reason we want to do this podcast is talk about more of like the creative process and such stuff like that. But also it's kind of linked to Minecraft, but also not really, because I myself am very heavily involved in Minecraft, and I do YouTube and stream it often, and I like to create art in Minecraft. It's basically my creative outlet of choice. So that is one of the reasons why we're going to talk about creative process a lot. So it might involve a lot of YouTube stuff. It might involve a lot of Minecraft stuff. But that is why I am here. That is my introduction.
Yeah, and that kind of comes to me commonly.
I forgot to say my name completely, but yes, I'm
Meg. There you go. That's
We're off to a great start.
I know, right? Yeah, I mean, honestly, as you probably, if you are familiar with Minecraft, and you might see what our title is hinting at, you might be thinking that it might actually have much to do with Minecraft, when really that's kind of, as Meg sort of suggested, just one of the ways that we've expressed ourselves creatively. In my case, it does lean to be more on the Minecraft side. However, it isn't exclusive to that, so some of the content we look to be talking about might be beyond that. And my name, and this is probably why I think, Meg, this was a good idea to start with this first, because mine is much more it's way out there. In game, I go by Master Rainboom, but you can just call me Rainboom. So if we introduce this to you just like that, imagine how confused you probably are going to be going.
Basically, our Minecraft usernames is what we're going by.
Precisely. So,
although mine is also my YouTube username, and et cetera, et cetera.
Yes, and we'll let me plug in for free. You better go check her out. Please do. MegRae. Early on in the podcast. No, I'm not going to throw wrenches at you like that. Don't worry.
Okay.
But yeah, so I guess
I could always throw one at you and say that you stream on Twitch every now and then.
Oh boy, no. You know how sporadic my stream schedule is. I don't know if it's enough to be able to really say, hey, I have a Twitch channel. It'll just be a secret thing for now. But well, I mean, now it's not really secret now, because I guess it's on the podcast. But
now it is, yeah.
I guess it is now. Maybe I kind of put myself in that hole there. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Well, anyways, okay. So let's see. Honestly, it's funny how this all has begun in terms of just how this is probably the first time we've actually been able to sit down and actually start doing this podcast, because it is.
Well, we've been talking about doing it for so long, and we weren't really sure how to start it. So
yep.
Now we're actually trying to start it.
And
seeing what happens with it.
As it may sound like, you're probably going, oh yeah, these guys are definitely just starting it out for sure. But yeah, no, it is. It's just been honestly and just continuous conversation. We said, hey, let's start a podcast, and every time, because I usually
it kind of started out as a joke.
Yes.
It totally did start out as a joke.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that it was because I actually met Meg mostly through streams because of her Twitch streams. And I think at some point we ended up starting to joke around about saying, or somehow the topic of a podcast came up. I actually don't remember the exact context.
I think it might have been because it's something that I've always wanted to do, but I never really knew. I never really want to do it by myself, kind of thing. So, yeah. But aside from that, I really don't know how it surfaced as like a meme and a joke that we've repeated over and over until it actually happened.
Yeah, it's just been the running gag for about the past, I don't know how much time it's been actually since it was
several
first mentioned.
Months.
Something like that, right? Maybe it might have been one of your other creative builds or something of the sort. But yeah, it was, I can't seem to remember it now. But anyways, however it surfaced, we eventually started very slowly rolling out the details and going, gee, I wondered how exactly we're going to put this together. And, at first, in my mind, I was going, oh, it's probably going to be a quick process. But evidently that was not the case, as all sorts of planning had to go in the background. And in terms of, it's crazy to think, even just before we started this, Meg, like how many different considerations we had to think about when putting this all together.
But that's also kind of nice because we'll have more content to talk about, since we are going to talk a lot about the creative process and the planning process and,
Actually,
all of that thought that goes into doing something.
That is true. Yeah. When you were actually starting to think about podcasting, did you have any ideas in mind yourself for what you wanted to do?
As for like a topic, or?
Yeah, like if you were just doing one by yourself, or if you actually ran with it. And
I never really had any ideas other than Minecraft, but we kind of ditched the Minecraft only podcast. Like, we were thinking about doing something that was exclusive to Minecraft, but then we ended up with this kind of mix of Minecraft / just creativeness. So you don't have to be a Minecraft player to listen, and you don't have to be a creative person necessarily, I guess. But
yeah, I mean, we won't have any specific Minecraft jargon like, oh yeah, you can use this particular mod, this / world edit.
Right. Well, we spend most of our time creating in Minecraft. Probably a lot of what we're going to talk about can apply to any creative venture you might have.
Yeah, pretty much. And even we mentioned streams, because I know that a lot of times that we interact, like Meg and I usually interact through streams, her streams, or whether it's mine or hers, but we often happen to be doing something in Minecraft on them anyways, so then some of the experiences we may have will probably relate back to that. So yeah, but at the same time, it kind of does extend beyond the Minecraft realm. So we are really looking forward to seeing how this all goes out. But yeah, like everything, even just in putting this together, even the name actually of this podcast was a whole discussion and a half, because we were trying to toss around things like, do we want this to be, it's like an in-your-face Minecraft themed podcast title, but then with a massive disclaimer saying this is not in any way specifically and exclusively related to Minecraft? Or do we want some kind of obscure or ambiguous, or kind of a title that makes you think, oh, I wonder what this podcast will be about, or something like that?
And it also kind of implies video games a lot too, I guess, just with the game mode. But I mean, we might venture into video games, you never know. We're just going to talk about all kinds of random stuff.
Very possible. Because honestly, in our own conversations, we have talked a lot about a whole bunch of random
We'll
stuff.
probably have a lot of tangents too, where we just talk about random things. Who knows?
That's true. You know what? Basking in nostalgia is one of them, or other things. Well, you'll probably find out more as we continue on. Because honestly, yeah, like Meg, you probably can agree that there are many things, like whether it's like video games, for example. We were looking at that for like things from your childhood that we just revisit or look back at, or even whether, any kind of form of entertainment, media, television, you name it, and things like that. So who knows where those tangents will go?
Who knows? But mostly we're going to be talking about creative process. And we were going to talk about, kind of the background of our podcast and like all the stuff that we went through. We kind of touched on it, but we didn't really talk about all of the planning that we've been putting into this, and we hope it's worth it. I don't even know if it was absolutely necessary, but here we are after weeks and weeks of planning.
Yeah, I mean, what is there that's interesting that might be? To think about it, it's even when we were thinking about like what this whole podcast was about, the conversations from when we had put this from weeks and months ago, I'm still trying to dig through my mind right now actually to think about what exactly we were talking about.
I don't even know.
Yeah, like even putting all the prep work behind it. There's listing out all the different ideas, making sure they wouldn't overlap each other. I'm actually drawing a blank aside from all the physical things we have. I could have sworn there were more. I really don't know. If anything does come to mind. Well, okay. It was a long process in the sense that we had, well, first off was trying to really figure out where we wanted to have the topic sit. If it was going to be specifically, kind of the linking factor to all the things we wanted to talk about.
Yeah, back when I said I really wanted to make a podcast and I really didn't know what it was going to be about, I just knew like, oh, it could be Minecraft, but I don't know. There's already Minecraft podcasts that exist, so I wanted to do something a little different. And of course, I wanted to pick something that would interest both of us, because otherwise, we need something that is interesting to talk about. And while you don't actually create content to the extent that I do, you said you were still interested in the creative process.
Oh, absolutely. So, and you know what? In some cases, what I kind of foresee happening is it might be a learning experience, not just for you listening, but for me too, because there are definitely things that I certainly am looking to learn, and I wonder what I'll be able to offer up myself, because mostly in terms of the creative work that I do, it mostly is just in these broadcasting forms and putting content like that together. So it is interesting to kind of see where we might be able to pull all these different experiences from that, and that's why we were trying to going back to figuring out how the whole underlying theme with all this was, because we were thinking, there might be it wouldn't be funny if we did a segment on this or a segment on this other subject, but then we were sort of thinking at the end of the day, what is it that ties all of this together? Otherwise it may sound like a variety show that might be way too broad, and you're probably going, what am I listening to?
Maybe we're overthinking this whole thing too. That's very possible, but I tend to overthink everything anyway, so this is just normal for me. That's
true. Actually, there were many aspects of this we may have probably considered ourselves to be overthinking, like whether it was the themes, putting the logo together. I know that was there was a part of the process actually too. That was an entire bit, wasn't it?
No, we were working together to come up with a good logo that we both liked.
Yes.
That took a while.
Oh yeah. Like starting in terms of how we wanted it to look like, the colors, all sorts of considerations, I think, and just making sure it kind of fit what we felt was like a good kind of fit for what we were, we didn't want to make it obviously look like it was like blatantly Minecraft specific, right? Or anything that was far too ambiguous or anything. But at the same time, something that kind of worked right in between. So I guess that's kind of where our current logo sits at. Well, we mixed it kind of because I guess it was definitely a collaborative effort, because I provided the background, you had the front end, like all the typefacing and stuff, if I remember correctly.
I guess I forgot to say it in my introduction, but I do graphic design, in my in real life job. So, and YouTube is just on the side for fun.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, but we ended up going with your design because
actually that was interesting. Actually, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we
right.
both had a lot of good designs.
Yes. No, I'm not.
But then we had to agree on the colors, which is a whole nother issue.
That definitely was. Yeah, the thing is now, when I mentioned that we did pick my design, I definitely am not discounting the fact that Meg's designs were terrible, which they were absolutely far from. They were pretty good designs. I know I had a lot of really wacky ones.
They're just pretty good.
No, come on. You know what I mean, right? Okay, here's the thing. I don't know exactly how you'd word this, because any kind of adjective I try to put on how good your things are, it makes it sound like it's terrible or something.
Okay.
Then, or whatever, however you want to
They were all right. They were all right. I will go with that.
Okay, mine were mediocre at best. Maybe if I can kind of suppress mine, maybe that'll help a little bit. But no, it was, how many different, I'm trying to remember pulling up all the different drafts we had. I'm just scrolling through in here. It's like,
we actually had a lot. There's actually some designs I might reuse for something in the future. You never know.
There you go. Yeah. Designs, maybe some color schemes. I know there was some pretty neat ones there too. Definitely some that were kind of just arbitrary, because actually, a lot of the colors that I kind of selected at first, they were mostly arbitrary too, which was really funny. But eventually, I think we came across a really nice little color set that was, I guess it's like somewhere between green and blue, but mostly blue. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the fun thing about it, I think, is that it kind of resembles a block from Minecraft, but also not. I didn't want it to stand out and scream like we are a Minecraft podcast, but we hint at it very subtly with
that's why you told me not to use. That's why you told me not to use the dirt or the grass block looking color scheme, because it would look too Minecrafty.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
It's very subtle.
Yes, that's
right. And
we
will probably end up talking a lot about Minecraft, but still, we do not want to consider ourselves a Minecraft-only podcast.
Exactly that. And you're probably going to hear us emphasizing this throughout. In whatever form it is. It might be in promotions. It'll be like a little disclaimer. It might be right up in your face. Maybe we'll mention it
But for the record, that is how we actually met. It was through, building in Minecraft, so it's just going to pop up a lot, because that's what we're both familiar with.
Actually, you know what? Maybe we should introduce exactly what we do specifically, because even Minecraft in itself,
True.
whether or not you're familiar with it, there are many different game modes, and creative obviously is one of them.
Creative is probably the one we're going to emphasize more than the survival aspect.
Side. That's right. And I guess because there are a whole lot of survival Minecraft podcasts out there, I'm sure. Meg, you probably know some, I'd imagine, but...
Not that many, but yes, they do exist.
They do exist.
Yeah.
They do exist. But I think creative might be the way that we're going to spin it. Because, for example, and obviously, well, if creative itself is just, it's basically what it sounds like. You do whatever you want, you build whatever you want, and really interesting things come out of it. Like, for example, I usually am more of what we call a structure builder. I find myself really into building cities and stuff, like really realistic looking, mostly on realistic looking structures and buildings, and maybe kind of making a place that feels like you can just explore it, kind of like virtual reality, but not really. But it's kind of the spin that I normally take, and that's what really has drawn me to the game, is that I can do all this design that I love to do, kind of like almost like architecture, but at the same time I get to actually explore and take a look at all the things that I've been able to build, invite people on to say, hey, look at this creation of mine, and feel free to explore. And I know, Meg, you have a completely different spin on how you take creative, and yours is really interesting, actually, how you take it.
Yeah, I typically do creative just because I like the artistic side of it, and trying to create what I would consider to be artistic works of art inside of the game, which is very cool to think about, that you can actually play a video game and at the same time be like, making works of art. I don't know. It's just the best of two worlds for me.
Yeah, maybe like it's basically art in 3 dimensions, right? Because it's almost like when I see you streaming out stuff, it's like you're painting practically, but instead of a 2-dimensional surface.
Sometimes I am painting.
Actually,
I have painted before in Minecraft.
Yeah, that's actually true. That's true. With the brushes and all that sort of thing. And it's like it basically is like 3-dimensional art practically.
You're either painting or sculpting, but inside of a cube game.
Pretty much. And so it's like that, and that's how I guess that this just shows how differently we have taken the game, and just why creativity, or the creative process, is probably what links it all together. And actually, now the more we talk about it, it kind of actually does seem like the best way we can kind of put all of our talking points together, just linking right back to the creative process. So that actually helps a lot. But honestly, I mean, I guess we're going to see how future episodes turn out. There's all sorts of things. I mean, obviously this one may just seem like it's what are these two even talking about right now?
We're just kind of rambling, trying to fill in the space for our first episode.
Yeah, actually, but then again, we don't even have a set length on this anyway. So I
we
guess
don't.
we can.
So the longer it goes, the better, though.
I mean, we could torture you just sitting and listening to what's going off, and we're not going to do that. I'm just kidding. I
mean, it's up to them if they want to continue listening.
That's fair. Well, I mean, what else have we... Let me just take us back into the whole podcast preparation bit. I'm just trying to remember the sequence of events that we had to think up to even put this together. It just comes to show that, really, there were so many things we had to consider. We didn't think we'd have to consider, but when the time came up, we definitely did. But
it's good to have all these things planned out, though.
Well in advance. Oh yeah. I feel like this would sound very different if we didn't do the sort of preparation that we did in advance. I feel like we're underprepared still, but at the same time we've overplanned. That also.
And I don't know if that makes sense, but
no, it does. And I guess that is something that one could fall victim to, where it seems like, oh yeah, we've got all this laid out. This is going to be how we're going to do it specifically in this way, and this way. And then you get to the actual day of, and it's all, or the time of, or whatever it is, and it's like, whoop, there goes all that knowledge out the window, and you're going, what am I actually doing here? It's like, it makes you think of, like presentations back in, I don't know if you ever had experienced any
I have had
really
to do a few presentations, yeah.
But ones where you had prepared, but all of a sudden you came in there and just felt like you were forced to wing it, because it's like everything that you had practiced.
My mind always blanked when I have to get up in front of people and talk. It just blanked.
I remember, like, there were times, and I knew when I was underprepared. and just I'd come in there on the day of, do the presentation, but I'd find myself struggling for words to try to figure out how to convey the information to the rest of my class. And those were devastating, especially because whether I knew that I over prepared or just thought or relied too much on, oh yes, I can probably wing this and hope I'll be able to get something half decent. But yeah, it's I really don't know. Do you remember it? Well, maybe not any specific ones. I don't think I'd want to highlight any one particular moment from your high school or early life. But do you remember any times that that had happened to you where you just prepared a bunch, but then all of a sudden you get there and it's like all this preparation just kind of went out the window?
I don't know
similar.
if it's hard for me to remember back because usually I try to bury all of these memories.
Oh, actually, so wait, we were just talking about this, weren't we? We're saying it's like, yeah, we never want to think about those years just because there were so many things that you think about. It's like it's whether it's either cringy or you're shaking your head going or just face palming everywhere to going, gee, I wonder why I even pulled this off, or why did I do that, or that was
I don't remember anything. I can't remember anything specifically. I do think I never prepared enough most of the time. I think that's one of the reasons why I was usually quite nervous giving a presentation. I was probably just not prepared well enough.
I see.
But I do remember just going up there and maybe talking. I think my biggest thing was I end up talking faster when I'm actually giving the presentation, and especially when I have like a time I'm supposed to reach. It's not good because, when you're nervous, I just end up talking a lot faster.
Oh, yeah.
And just going through my points, and then, yeah, like I've talked about this enough. Let's move on to the next point. And no, that's the worst thing that I can think of. It just ended up talking too fast or...
Oh, absolutely. The funny thing, though, is when you start talking, you never realize how quickly time flies. And I think that's kind of where it just becomes. It's
or
like
you think you have plenty of points to talk about, and then you end up going through them all in 2 minutes. You're like, wait a second, I have got nothing else to talk about.
I've hit the end of the page.
And you can't really go back.
Exactly. You can't say, oh, let's cycle back in this because we have more time.
Although I feel like in this podcast, we're already kind of like, oh, we forgot to mention this and we forgot to mention this. But that's okay. This is just episode 1.
I think we have an excuse because we're not being graded on this. Unless, of course, if you're listening, you
and
want to grade us.
We don't really care.
We
don't really care too much. I mean...
Yeah, exactly. But it's funny
it's supposed to be very, very relaxed and not forced or anything.
Well, hopefully it sounds like if you're listening, it's coming across that way.
Hopefully it sounds like that.
And I'm sure that you'll probably inform us if it ever becomes an issue. You're like, oh, you guys sound so fake, or whatever the case is.
Oh no.
The feedback is always the most important part. I was gonna say, back to the whole idea of presentations. It's funny because recently I'm actually completing my my program. So by the time, I don't know when exactly this is gonna come out, but basically as of when we're speaking or doing this now, I'll be finishing my university program. And I've had these courses where we've had these presentations, and the timings on them were given about a half-hour window, where we usually try to give, maybe about 10-15 minutes on presentation, and then the other 10-15 on just discussion and maybe seeking some feedback and advice. And the funny part about it is that when it's my turn and I've got the timer on, because these are, PowerPoint presentations. You read through the slides, you do whatever, and you cycle through and that sort of thing. But I always have the timer on, and I always have this immediate feeling that because I myself know that I have the tendency to ramble on. And so for me, if you tell me that I have to give a 15-minute presentation, I'll be asking, what happens if I go over? Because I know that I'm going to go over.
Oh, I always had the opposite problem. I was always under.
Interesting. Yeah, but the thing is, so when I know that, then I'd find myself rushing like crazy during the presentation.
Oh, and then you would be under?
Exactly, on twice the speed. And sometimes I'd make it, sometimes I'd overestimate it and end up then under the time. It's like, when you put a YouTube video or anything on twice the speed, or if there was a higher setting, that's kind of like what I would be trying to do. Obviously, though, it would be much worse.
I guess what you could be doing, I don't know if it would be an option, but try to just go normal pace, and if you can't finish in time, just kind of wrap it up before you finish.
I guess so. I think the fear that I've had, though, mostly is just that, whenever, if I were to do that, then I'd fear that, because the way that my presentations will be laid out, sometimes the important information is spread across the whole thing. So if I don't make it to the end, then I'll be afraid that I'll be like, I'm missing some information, and the people who I'm presenting to are not getting the whole picture. But I guess I've never had to run into it, just because I force myself to say, all right, Rainboom, you're finishing this off as soon as you can. Just go through it, get it done with, go through the slides, and just pass it on to the next person and call it a day. But then I listen back, actually, I never realized it until I listened back to myself. Like, if I were to listen to a recorded presentation, or even just stuff I do over on the air, if I feel like, even in an interview, or I feel like I've been rushing, or I thought I was speaking normally, and then I listen back and I realize, gee, you sound like, like a record going on 4 times the speed or something, like 78 RPM or whatever it is. And then I realize, wow, my perception is so different from what I actually end up getting out of whatever the presentation or whatever it is. Like, I don't know if you've experienced it, where it's like you think you're speaking a certain speed, especially if you record yourself, and then you listen back, and then you're going, whoa, that's a lot faster, or that's a lot slower than I thought. Yeah,
actually, that does happen to me sometimes when I'm just recording a simple voiceover for YouTube. I'm just trying to get the information out, and then I listen back to it, and it sounds like all the words are slurred together because I'm talking so fast. Like, whoa, I need to slow down. Yeah, I do tend to talk too fast when I have a lot to say.
I see. But your YouTube, but do you usually ever put a limit as to how long you never want a YouTube video to run any longer than, or does it depend on the video?
It just depends on the video. I just let the video be as long as it needs to be. The only reason I would re-record something is if it's not clear the words I'm saying, because sometimes I do set, like, I have to re-record a segment or something just because I said it too fast and I couldn't even understand what words I was saying. Like, okay, let me slow that down, enunciate every word. So
oh, yes.
I do have to re-record quite a bit.
Indeed. Come to think about it, though, I feel like I might be slurring some of my words right now.
Although I feel like for a podcast in a conversation style, it's more acceptable.
Yeah, I guess so. As long as you can still understand what I'm saying, I guess is the most important part. Because if I
think that's fine here.
Going into that, that overdrive 2 times speed, 78 RPM mode, even in conversation, it can be hard to understand, and sometimes I fear that. One of the funniest things I remember, and I'll this might be a tangent, this might be related, but when I was working at during my internship, there was one time when I discovered that you could actually listen back to and play or download voicemail messages you left on people's inboxes, or messages they left in your inbox. So if you ever needed to refer to it back again, I don't know, for whatever purpose. So I said, all right, let me see how this message sounded like that I sent to somebody. And I thought for some reason that I was speaking normally. And I listened back to this message. I'll never forget it. I might even honestly share this with you at some point. But it's so funny because I listened to the message, and I start normally, and it sounded like it was just your regular speaking voice. And all of a sudden, somewhere in the middle of that message, I go into like this whole other plane of existence, and it just sounds like I've been fast forwarded like 3 times. I can't even understand myself at that point. And I was going, gee, I left this kind of a message to somebody, and it sounded so terrible. This was like the first bit made sense, but the rest of it was just like somebody had hit the fast forward button. And so it's like, even that in casual conversation, sometimes I'm trying to be careful. So I still make it a point to do my enunciations and make sure that all the syllables come across and I don't slur too crazily. Now, obviously not to the point where I sound like, I'm trying to emulate somebody from like an old game show or a panel show or something where their English was formal or whatnot, because I definitely would probably sound out of place. But, like, you probably know what I'm talking about, right? Like any old... I guess maybe I was going to give some context, because I'm not sure if you're listening, maybe familiar with shows like What's My Line and some old panel game shows that Meg and I tend to talk about on occasion. But if you ever listen to the degree of how their grasp of, or whatever the right term is, of the English language, that's what I mean, where you're really almost over enunciating things.
Everyone was so formal back then.
Right, eh? Like,
all
you know what I mean, right?
Their language is so formal.
It is. Their vocabulary was pretty complex too. in terms of just, now we have, whether it's simpler ways of saying things or quote unquote simpler, at least that's how we may interpret it.
Or more slang. We have a lot more slang
yes.
just mixed into our language.
Yeah. But yeah, it's like that kind of thing. Like if I were to try to emulate that and bring it into an ordinary, would you imagine if you were to try to kind of copy that almost and have it perfectly down and then walk into a conversation and just start bringing that in and sounding like that?
I would come across as very phony, probably.
Exactly. For me, all the more so, I think. It was something, hey, Rainboom, are you reciting lines or something? What is that for? When's the show? When can we see the show or something like that, But yeah, it's just interesting how it is. So I really hope that I don't come across too terribly in this podcast. Maybe it's
no.
Maybe it'll be
Don't
an
overthink
exercise.
it. Don't overthink it. No.
That's true. Right. I have to keep that in mind. Okay, I'm going to write a mental note.
That's going to be, we need we need a little slogan. We don't have a slogan yet. Don't overthink. Gamemode Creative, don't overthink it.
Don't overthink it. That'll be the inside joke. There you go. Instead of saying this is not a Minecraft podcast, it'll be don't overthink it.
Don't overthink it. There you go. We'll just repeat it. This is the Gamemode Creative Podcast. Don't overthink it.
Hey, if we run out of intro outro music, we'll just have that on infinite loop. Don't overthink it. Don't overthink it. Don't make some hypnotic. No, I'm just kidding. Like some kind of hypnotic voice or something that just goes on somewhere. Or maybe if you want to take a quote unquote commercial break, it's just going to be 5 seconds.
That really sums up though, like what it takes to make a podcast or whatever the title of this episode is don't overthink it, because even though we do overthink it, you shouldn't. That's basically what we're saying.
Actually, you know what? That's very true. Honestly, yeah. And I guess we now know firsthand from experience that overthinking it isn't going to help us much at all. So I think it...
I think one of the biggest things we struggled with was when to stop the planning and start the actual podcast.
Oh, yes.
Because it's like, okay, we can talk about doing this forever, but are we ever going to actually do it? Apparently, yes, because here we are.
At long last. But isn't it funny, how many different voice channels or voice chats or calls or whatever you'd like to call them that we've been in, where we've almost...
Even just chatting about it during live streams, which is how it started, really. We just tease about it in a live stream.
Actually, very true, very true. And then just start going at it, and then at the end I'll quip and say something like, really we should be starting to record this because this basically is the podcast.
yeah, basically. We've had that happen several times. We were like, this could be a podcast topic. Why are we talking about this now?
I really wonder, I'm still trying to figure out how to best trigger that spontaneity, because it's funny when we started sitting down into this and going, let's start the podcast, nothing came almost. Like it took a bit before we could get on the ground.
You just have to start talking and then it just kind of naturally comes out after a while.
Something like that, yeah. But yeah, so I guess that this is a lesson to us, and hopefully this may help to you listening as well. Don't overthink it, I guess. That's probably...
Don't overthink it. That's what we're going to say from now on.
Perfect summary, I think. And from there, we'll hope we don't overthink any of the other episodes coming up if you ever hear from any content coming up in the future.
I can guarantee that we are going to continue to overthink it, but that's why we need to keep repeating it to ourselves, not to overthink
it. there we go. All right. I will continually keep that in mind, and I guess you will too, and we'll find out how things go. But it's crazy how much time has passed now with this, isn't it? Look at that. This basically
it's a little over half an hour.
Is a full, practically, or at least in our eyes, it could be a full-length podcast, practically, eh?
Yeah.
Look at that. Well, what do you say? Maybe we'll save our other tangents for another.
Yeah,
another
we can. We definitely can.
I think that was a good way to sum it. I should have probably just rolled with that, but yeah. Hey, honestly, thanks for coming around by. It's been great. Actually,
if you managed to listen to this.
If you managed to, that's fair. Or if you happen to jump.
We kind of rambled a bit, but rambled for 30 minutes. Hopefully it was slightly entertaining.
And entertaining rambling, I think, yeah.
Yeah.
I really would encourage you, though, to go check out Meg's streams if you want to hear. Well, no, I'm kidding. Not to say rambling. No. What was I trying to get with that? I was thinking something else. It was sometimes the entertainment you get from some of the commentary that you provide, which makes it much
I don't
more
know.
entertaining.
I feel like your streams have way more commentary than mine.
Oh no, I ramble. See, I'm trying to fill time.
You ramble.
I'm just there going, I don't want this to be quiet.
I feel like half the time I don't even talk in my streams, but that's just me.
It's okay, but yeah, you can probably find us and whatnot. And but honestly, we're just looking forward to seeing where this basically turns out and seeing if we'll.
Yeah, just enjoying just talking about things that interest us.
Yes,
and hopefully it interests you too.
And how it all ties back to the creative process, which is what Gamemode Creative is hopefully all about.
Hopefully.
Hopefully is the key word. We will definitely find out. Well, anyways, hey, hopefully you have a good one then. And until the next episode, whenever that may be, we'll catch you then.
All right, see you.